Welcome back to Torn Apart, and today we're doing the spooky version of Torn Apart, where we basically talk about all the movies and all the horror movies that came out in the last few weeks, because I'm bringing it back. This is Halloween at the movies.
Let's face it, baby, these days, you gotta have a sequel.
No! God, please, no! No!
As I was looking at the stuff that was coming out in the theater, even for Halloween night, I had nothing to see, because most of them either came out at the beginning of October or they're coming out in November. Like if you look at films like Predator, for example, or Shelby Oaks is coming out in a couple of weeks here in France, while it has come out in the States. Like the Halloween season used to be a thing, right? Where movies like Halloween used to come out and where we all gather together at the cinema to talk about specific things, but I feel like it's not a thing anymore. Now horror movies are coming out all of the time throughout the year, and it's almost impossible to know which ones are going to be box office bombs or successes. And this is actually a mix when it comes to the movies that I'm going to talk about today. There's going to be a lot of really bad stuff and a lot of really good and promising stuff, and I think there is no middle ground. There is no horror movie in this list where I was there like, it was okay, it was good, but I'm not gonna rewatch it or think about it in the next few weeks. Let's start by talking about the biggest marketing scam of the year, which is Jordan Peele's new movie, Him.
What are you willing to sacrifice?
Even though now we know that he didn't direct that film at all, he just produced it. I don't know who was in charge of scheming when it comes to the publicity stunt they did here, because I literally went in thinking this was a new project made by him. I didn't know the director at all, and the vibes were incredibly Jordan Peele-esque, because I was sitting there being like, what is going on? How did you convince me to watch this film, even though it was the most brutal kind of like nonsense I've seen in a really long time. I gave it a 1.5 star over 5 on Letterboxd, and to be honest, I was being really kind, mostly because this looks still quite good. The cinematography is interesting, because I've heard that the director is actually a like music clip director as well, so it makes a lot of sense that he would be able to do some interesting stuff with the camera and the lighting. But everything else around it, the performances, the writing, they're just bad. And it's a bit annoying, because I feel like the sport, but it is actually a cult horror subgenre, is so small when you think about it, and this definitely falls into that. The problem with this film is that it had so much potential. It had so much potential to have those kind of like Midsommar culty vibes. It had decent performances, but not by the main actors at the end of the day. And to be honest, editing wise as well, it was kind of a mess. You know when you have those A24 like films that like pretend to be very clever? Yeah, it's elevated horror for dummies. This is what Him was, and I'm not the only one who thinks that, I think, because I've seen it's been mostly critically panned online, and let's be honest, we don't even need to talk about it, because it was definitely one of the most disappointing films of the year, and we talked about it mostly because of Jordan Peele. If this came out on Shudder, no one would have seen it, without a doubt. It's one of those horror movies that is just not memorable at all. And then we go into something that should definitely be not memorable, because there have been so many movies in this franchise, and the last one was so incredibly boring. The Devil Made Me Do It was, I think, among the worst films, not only of the franchise, but of that year when it came out. So I had zero expectations when it came to Last Ride. I waited for it to come out on streaming as well. I didn't want to see it in theater because I knew there were going to be so many cheap jump scares. And I mean, it didn't disappoint just on that aspect. It got, once again, a 1.5 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd for me. And it was so incredibly stupid. But I think the thing that really broke it for me was most of these special effects. The CGI is very bad, and there's a lot of like jump scares where you see like the demon's face like going straight to the camera, like as close as possible.
Did I jump scare you? Yeah, I bet I did. You coward. You make me sick. Your weakness is pathetic.
And it just doesn't work for me. Like, who is this made for at the end of the day? Because this is the 4th movie in the franchise, and it's definitely not a reboot, so you can't really say that this is for new generations. This is 100% with people who knew the original trilogy. It also like came out a couple of years after the 3rd one. It's not like it comes 10 years later. So why are you trying to scare us as if we were teenagers? Because the audience is definitely grown up. Some of the things done in this movie do not work at all. And also, like, I feel like the thing that I hate about supernatural horror movies these days is that they don't really seem to follow any particular rule. They're just so desperate to try and scare you. And the thing is, I feel like the horror genre is very codified for a very specific reason, because it kind of allows us to suspend our disbelief in a very controlled way. And at this point, it really feels like the demons in this franchise, they're kind of like Pokémons just appearing anywhere, everywhere. It's very, very cheap, and I'm sitting there being like, it just makes no sense. For a supernatural horror movie, it makes no sense. So imagine how stupid it must have been. And I think I gave it like a 1.5 star just because it was scored well. Some of the performances were alright, even though I just don't buy the fact that these people are still alive at this point. Like, almost no one dies, and it made me want to see just a better supernatural horror movie. A supernatural horror movie where people actually die. And it's not just one priest which is going to be sacrificed to make us scared, to make us believe that there are actual stakes with the story itself, because there aren't. The only interesting part, I think, for me was the fact that it was actually haunting like a big family with like I think it was like 5, 6, 7 family members at the same time. It was a disappointment, and I was expecting to be disappointed. So at the end of the day, maybe it was a success.
Vengeance is mine.
Let's go into something that actually is very good. Black Phone 2. I loved it, to be honest. Scott Derrickson did an incredible job. He really channeled that kind of like sinister vibe that made him famous at the end of the day. There is some found footage aspect in this film. It feels like it's more gory. It's definitely more scary. And it's also more complex. There are more things going on at the same time, more characters, and there's more budget as well. Because if you look at the first film, it felt like a very low budget version of that story. When I think back on it, it really feels like we're basically stuck in a concrete like prison for most of the runtime of the film. That's what I remember from it anyways, and I remember the grabber, of course, and the dynamic with the victim himself and how he manages to kill him at the end of the day, which is a really cool thing for a child at the end of the day, because these kind of stories never go like that when you think about it, with these kidnappings and murders and stuff like that. And this film here really made us care for these two people even more, just because they've grown up, they've become different people, but at the same time they're haunted by all of the traumas from their past. I just loved seeing these actors back on screen. And of course, Ethan Hawke is incredible once again, and the Nightmare on Elm Street vibes are good. I mean, I've seen a lot of people criticizing this, being like, oh, it did nothing revolutionary if you compare it to the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. But the Nightmare franchise, I think we haven't had a film in at least 10 years, and we haven't had a good film in probably 20 or 25 years. So like, is it fair to compare it to that? Because there has been no other horror thing that is basically based on that kind of like vision, maybe besides Stranger Things or other series, like for example the stuff that Mike Flanagan has worked on. But within a film, it's definitely something that has not been explored in a really long time, and I really loved it. I mostly loved it because it looked very interesting. I loved the Super 8 kind of feeling with these visions. Also, to be honest, I'm a huge digger for just movies that take place in the winter time, and there is snow and it's cold. There's not that many films that take place around that time, and it's also why I love The Shining when you think about it. It just feels so scary to be isolated because of like a natural like thing that happens almost every single year.
Help!
just being stuck in a snowstorm feels so much more scarier than just being in suburbia, which is somewhere that we always seem to be when it comes to these kind of horror films. So setting it in a camp, setting it in a summer camp but make it wintertime, immediately made it more interesting for me. Like, even if I wasn't interested in anything going on in the film, I would have still been interested in that specific concept. But all the pieces came back together for me, and the performances were incredible. Specifically the little sister, incredible work. To be honest, like, I put her name in like the best performances of the year, because I was sitting there being like, this is incredible. Like, you made me care so much about your character, even though like you were not that important in the first film. Also, the idea of just switching characters from one movie to the next is something that I really like, because it gives us like a different point of view on the same kind of like a struggle and fight with the villain. So honestly, I gave it, I think, a 4.5 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd, just because I felt that it was starting to become a little bit repetitive with the visions and the flashbacks and that kind of stuff. And maybe with a 15-minute trim, it would have been like a perfect movie, but that's nitpicking, because I really had a good time. And if it's still available in cinemas out there, seek it out, without a doubt. I did this for you. Like, the next one is 100% just for this video, because I literally added this movie to the list of films that I wanted to boycott with all my heart. So appreciate the fact that I watched The Strangers Chapter 2.
Why are you doing this to us? Because you're here.
Thanks. This is the best day of my life. I'm killing myself tomorrow.
It was bad. It was not only bad, I was honestly like, I was feeling cringed out. As in, how can you actually make a movie that is less interesting, less original than the Chapter 1, which was already like one of the worst films of that year? Not even horror films, just films in general. Because while the first one was bad because it was literally just a reboot slash remake of the original premise, this movie is bad because there's nothing original about it, and they're adapting something that has never been told before. And I think the main problem also has to do with the final girl, who is incredibly bad. Her performance is abysmal. She's not acting like a final girl as well. She's not even trying to get back at these people. Like, when she actually manages to kill one of them, honestly, who gives a fuck about spoilers? I don't think that this is an important thing. When she manages to kill one of them, I think it's towards the end of the film as well. And I was like, this should have happened way earlier. Like, this girl is just hiding from one place to the next. So you can really tell that this movie was made by a studio being like, okay, we have a 15-minute like idea slash spec script. Can we turn it into a trilogy? This is what it feels like, because this movie really felt so convoluted in a way that we're just moving from one location to the next. She's hiding here, she gets discovered, she gets like knifed, and she runs away towards another place, and then rinse and repeat over and over again, and she never like hits back at the enemy, while she keeps like losing like blood, losing people. At some point she's even confronted with like the corpse of a boyfriend, so it really feels like she should snap. Like, this is the moment where in good like slasher movies, the final girl should snap and like get back at them, take control back. But they want to keep it for a trilogy, so they want to keep it for the third movie, but it's so incredibly boring to watch. It's kind of like the Halloween trilogy as well, in the way that Halloween Kills kind of felt like a transition piece in between a really good Halloween movie and what they wanted to do with Halloween Ends, which will end up being interesting just because it was so different from all of the other films. It felt like a transition piece, right? And this movie feels like a transition piece. It feels like a waste of time. If I could have given it a 0 score on Letterboxd, I would have, because there are so many pathetic scenes. There is even one which is like the most frightening scene ever, and it's with a boar. She's getting chased by a boar in the woods. There is an entire sequence. It's not just like a 1-minute thing. It's like an actual like sequence that is being built up. There is tension. What are we doing here? Like, why? And the fact that that sequence was the most interesting part of the movie, you're sitting there being like, what? Why are we doing this? Why? And it's something that bugged me, like, honestly. I don't know if people really hate this kind of stuff, but I do. The continuity errors, specifically relating to the main actress makeup, and the fact that she kept getting her face and body destroyed, and then as soon as you move to the next location, it feels like they redid her makeup. Like, her face specifically was more cleared out and with eyeliner and stuff like that. And the cuts that she had on her body became kind of like beautified, as in like they became something that could go from one scene to the next without being too hard to track and recreate for like a special effects kind of point. Like, this is stupid. Like, why are we doing this? It feels like one of those films that is made for the TikTok generation, as in like from one sequence to the next, maybe you're gonna pull up your phone and not pay attention and maybe not realize that now her face is she's beautiful again. You're welcome. Don't watch the film. Do not give it any type of money. Don't even pirate it. Like, who cares? Because I've already wasted my time for you. Don't repeat the experiment, please. Let's get into some actual good stuff though, because the final two movies I wanted to talk about are actually good. One is with a dog, and we all love dogs. I've been waiting for this movie for quite some time. It's Good Boy. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd because he is the goodest boy that there is in the entire world.
I guess I'm next. I should never have come here.
And honestly, best performance of the year. Like, the movie was not perfect. Let's agree on the fact that the special effects were a bit messy at times. It really screamed the low budget. It really screamed the kind of like first feature, especially if you watch a lot of horror films. Maybe some people would not be bothered as much as I was. But there are some special effects which work quite well. The idea of having that like dark figure like hiding in a corner, that was really, really effective. And I kind of hoped that it stayed like that for the entire movie, but it wouldn't have been possible just because there is more action going on. But I think I still was able to forgive that because the concept of this film is incredible. I actually cannot think of another film that really puts you into the point of view of an animal like this film was made. Like everything from the fact that, for example, you don't really see most of the times the face of the main character, so the only human in the house, mostly because we are set on telling the story of this dog and through the perspective and the eyes of this dog, meaning that the film itself, in the way that it's constructed, it's telling you not to pay attention specifically to him, but to the idea that this dog feels powerless and doesn't understand what is going on or what he should be doing. And that is the scary part. And I really loved everything about that aspect, and you really identify with the dog so much more. And I feel like doing a supernatural horror movie through the perspective of an animal who doesn't understand these kind of things must be so scary. Basically because it doesn't have the background that we have of like 50 years, if not more, of movies that have told these kind of stories or weird things that have happened on the news. He's just a dog. He lives a very simple life. So to him, this is probably the most incredible things that have happened, and he doesn't know if it's a bad or a good thing. And if you go into the movie with that kind of perspective, everything seems amazing. And for me, it's one of the best horror films of the year, and definitely in that kind of paranormal activity way, it could launch a new subgenre of like pets going through these traumatizing experiences with their owners. Honestly, I think that it would be really cool, especially if the animals survive at the end. They have to survive at the end. Even though there are some traumatizing things going on in this film. No spoilers, of course, but you'll know what I mean if you've seen the film. And the last movie that I wanted to talk about is VHS Halloween. And I was surprised to say that this is probably the best VHS movie ever. And there have been a lot of VHS movies. I've seen most of them. I think I skipped like the previous one and maybe the one before, but just because like it's getting harder and harder to find them, and also they're not marketed really well. So at the end of the day, like I don't even know that they've come out. Like VHS Halloween, I found out that it came out literally just because of reviews of people talking about it, not because I saw posters or anything. But this is the first time where I enjoyed every single one of the short films. It has never happened before, and I'm gonna give you my rating of all of them right now. I'm not gonna go deep into each short film because it would take a long time. I'm just gonna say that all of them kind of represent a different aspect of why we love horror films. There is the weird, absurd kind of horror comedy thing. There is the gory aspect of it where it's just happening and there is so much of it that it almost becomes funny. There is the supernatural horror thing that you're supposed to take it super seriously because it's a very serious matter with like kind of like possession stuff. And there is the kind of like haunted house aspect to it, which works so well. And the international aspect of it, because one of the short films is shot in Spanish as well. So it just united so many things that we love about horror cinema in all the perfect amounts as well. The only criticism I had was the fact that the short film that was actually uniting all of them together didn't really make sense when you think about it. Like, it just felt like an extra short film that they cut into pieces for no reason whatsoever. I actually liked the idea of like someone stumbling on these VHS tapes somehow and telling that story in an interesting way. It is repetitive, of course, but you still need to make us understand how these tapes came out of nowhere, basically, right? So at the last place I would put Dian Phantasma, which is the framing story I was just talking about. Then I put Ut Supra Sic Infra, which was really cool. Home Hunt, incredibly well made once again. Kid Print, which felt like it definitely deserved like a long feature like aspect of it, because this is a really scary kind of like serial killer thing. Fun Size, which is the comedy aspect that I was talking about before, which was really funny and really weird. And in first place I put Coochie Coochie Coo, which was weird. Yeah, honestly, this is Tusk, Kevin Smith levels of weird, where you keep thinking about it and you're sitting there being like, how do you get these ideas? Where do they get from? Like, are you haunted at night by nightmares and you turn them into movies? Because this is weird. That's how I spent my Halloween season, watching all of these incredible or bad films. What about you? What other horror films did you manage to watch on Shudder or other streaming platforms? Anything that you would recommend? Let me know down in the comments. As usual, if you like this video, down here at the bottom I'm gonna be putting other videos where I talked about horror movies just in general. Maybe I'm gonna put the previous episode of Halloween at the movies, which takes me back a couple of years. And this month I'm actually celebrating the 5 years of my channel here on YouTube. In the next video I'm gonna talk about it a little bit more and maybe even get emotional, but for now this is it. Don't forget to smash that like button. Every single time that you do that, you make sure that you get a phone call from the grabber at a very inopportune moment and you don't really know what to do about it. Should you save the people that the grabber is taken, or don't you want to get mixed up with all of that because you're afraid that the grabber might take you instead? A lot of things to ponder.
Can I count on you?
I hope you had a fantastic Halloween. I'm Patrick and this is Torn Apart.
Back in the 90s, I was in a very famous TV show. Da 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 da. Da 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 da.